All right, all my good people on the internet all over the world. We're back at it. Another episode of Fandemonium, our specials where we dive deep into all the subjects that make us go wild in pop culture. And if you guys have been rocking with War Media for a while, you should recognize the guy alongside me here, Dedrian Colon, and a wrestling expert, rising star in the wrestling media, has the platform, I should say, House of Wrestling, that is going out doing a lot of great things, covering all the federations, all the promotions, and all the talents that we love so much in the world of wrestling. Dedrian is here with me to wrap up one of the wildest years in professional wrestling that there's ever been, and to give us a little peek ahead into what he thinks is going to happen in next year, which could be even wilder. But like I said, if you've been rocking with War for a while, me and Dedrian have done wrestling specials and segments, quite often. Well, this is the first one we're doing with the Fandemonium show. I figured it fits because and on Fandemonium we talk about Marvel and movies and all types of wild stuff. So I'm kind of folding in the wrestling stuff into the Fandemonium coverage overall, because wrestling is pop culture, is sort of getting back to that place where it was, it's as close as ever been, I think, since the 90s, the late 90s, early 2000s, when wrestling was really on top and making a lot of money. A lot of people were making a lot of different money, and WWE was challenged. WWF still at that point was given as much of a challenge as it's ever been. And, it is interesting now to draw back from that history of, so long WWF was unchallenged. Eventually AEW comes along in 2019. It reestablishes, for the first time really since WCW, a legit second, a legit second option in America for wrestling. And leading up to this year, it was as strong as it's ever been, but it's also faced a lot of challenges this year. And on top of that, you have with the WWE the whole transition of what we probably never really expected to see. I don't know how. I'll let you tell it how you expected it, but I personally never expected to see the WWE change hands of its control with Vince McMahon still above ground. But
Man,
we've seen for 6 months now what we've seen a post Vince McMahon WWE. So let's just start it with that, because that's with as much craziness has happened in 2022, and as many storylines as you could pick out that will probably top most wrestling years, and we'll get into a lot of those as well. But the big story this year has to be Vince McMahon stepping down from WWE and the WWE moving on. So, I mean, let's just start with that, man. What's your take on how that all happened and
man,
what it's meant for wrestling?
it's funny you mentioned that because a lot of people have, that's pretty much up there. Right behind it is Brawl Out with the whole CM Punk, Young Bucks, Kenny Omega thing. But what's
Yeah,
wild about 2022, you had the Vince thing, you had Triple H taking over, Brawl Out, you had Cody Rhodes going to WWE, you had Sasha Banks and Naomi walking out, you had, was it, the whole backstage drama in AEW, all that. And you know what's buried underneath all those stories? Stone Cold returned and have a match. Nobody's
yeah,
talking about that. Like
yeah,
seven was it 19 years or something like that? His last
yeah.
match. Nobody's
Was
talking
it
about Stone Cold.
2003, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
nobody's talking about Stone Cold coming back and wrestling the match. That's just everyone's like, oh yeah, I forgot it.
that's what I say. That's how crazy it is. Because like in a lot
Yeah,
of years, that would be the biggest story of the year. But you mentioned you got to mention like 6 or 7 things before that. Even.
And it's the way it unfolded. All this stuff. It was just like Cody left. It was like, oh wow, that's the biggest story of the year. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Hold my beer. That was the biggest story. Then it's like, oh man, he came back. Then you had, the whole Forbidden Door thing. It's like, all right, that's the biggest story of the year. Then Sasha Banks leaving. Oh, that's the biggest story of the year. Then
and you know who you haven't mentioned too among all that, MJF.
Oh,
MJF
see,
called.
that's how much
That's
stuff.
yeah. MJF called Tony Khan a effing mark on live TV, left the company for 3 months, and then came back, got to be the number 1 contender, and now he's the heavyweight champion of AEW.
It's
Like all
and you
that's
know what?
happened.
Yeah, and you know what? It's cool because like we've talked about this, and you've probably mentioned me use this term. Pro wrestling is, for me, it's a live action comic book. Most of the stuff that we see unfold in professional wrestling this year has happened in comic book storylines. You would not imagine that stuff happening in real life. And it's like, huh? And then the way the whole Vince McMahon stuff unfolded, it was just like, that's crazy. But what's crazy also with that story is I remember myself and a few other buddies were like, man, I don't know what it is, but it seems like WWE's gonna have a scandal pretty soon. And this was like 2-3 years ago. It's like they're making too much money for no scandal. It's like you look around the business world, it's like, all right, scandal over here, scandal over there, and it's like, how the hell are you making all this money and no scandal? 2022, bam. And what's crazy is that it's come out with several reports that people within or someone or a few people, what have you, from the board kind of leaked that stuff out to the Wall Street Journal. So it's just unfolded like that. And then to top it off, he left. And now there's word that he wants to regain his power.
Exactly. Yeah. And we could look at that like going ahead towards as we go ahead, but going back to how all that unfolded, like a lot of it had to do, of course, with the sexual abuse or sexual misconduct allegations and stuff with Vince. Are you surprised that that's what eventually got him out the paint, or do you think that was bound to be what was? Because it seemed like with a lot of the coverage like that's happened since, it's like he was sort of playing out some of the things that he was doing in real life on TV throughout the years. We know that at least two of the people who he settled money with, worked on TV. A former wrestler and a former manager. So it's like Vince was just out here wild, man. And
it don't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, what do you? In the end, do you think that it's fitting that this is the way that he went out?
I wouldn't say fitting. It's not surprising. Myself and a high school buddy of mine who I still keep in contact with, we watched wrestling when we were teenagers, still watching everything. And me and him said it 20 years ago. We're like, yo, a lot of this stuff he's doing on TV is too convincing. Like, look, man. And of course, a few of our friends, no, he's just playing the character. It's like, there's playing the character, and then there's this. Like, it don't look like he's playing the character. Like, this, like, no, he's sneaking some stuff in. And to see years later it unfold this way, it's like, nah. And I'm sorry. Whatever you believe and stuff like that, but I'm a strong stickler for vibes. And when you watch Vince McMahon back in the day in those segments, there was a real creepy vibe. Like, nah, this ain't like, I don't know, this is kind of weird. Like,
because I mean, he already like when he really got going with this stuff, he already was like in his 50s, and he was messing around with women who literally was like half his age. Like, what are you talking about? Sable or Christy Hemme, or all these women who he would flirt with on screen and do all these sexual things with. Like, they were really old enough. They were as young or younger than Stephanie. And, of course, he do some wild stuff with Stephanie, too. But it's like, dude he just really got too, like you say, he got too caught up in his character. I guess he was reveling too much in just the success that he. So, like, I don't know. Did you see the documentary that came, the Vice thing that came out yesterday? A lot of it was old footage already,
Yeah,
but they packaged it in a way where they was just like, if you didn't know his story from the past 40, 50 years, they caught you up on all this stuff, and then they
yeah.
took you up to today with what's happened this year. But
No, I didn't
it did,
catch it.
yeah, it was pretty good. Like I said, it really didn't shine light on anything new, but it packaged everything well, as far as like, if you didn't know the whole story, and it gave you some of the backstory and stuff about his life even before he knew his father and stuff. It was okay. But
Yeah,
I was just saying, like,
I've always said Vince McMahon is the wrestling version of Mr. Burns. I've always said that. His characteristics are identical to Mr.
you
Burns.
have made that comparison a lot. I mean, it's wild though too, because like, yeah, he had the privilege of having a father who was a kingpin in the industry, but he did also have that rough. He had rough elements of his childhood too, and stuff that might have affected him. Really for the rest of his life. But you know, at a certain point, you got to get beyond a lot of that stuff, and you got to, I mean, at the same time, he's done a lot for a lot of people. He's made a lot of people money. He's made a lot of people's dreams come true. But you can't just do whatever you want with people just because you've made a lot of good for people and created an industry that has done a lot of good things for people. That don't mean that you could take advantage of people who are under you and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I'm, how do I put this? I'm glad that we are past the whole Vince McMahon being in charge of WWE creative to an
Yeah.
extent, because the past 6 months, like, it's
Wait.
somewhat
Okay. Yeah.
watchable. It's
I,
somewhat watchable, but there's
let's get
still,
wait,
it's like,
let's get specific on that one. Yeah. What do you think about essentially Triple H is running things now? Paul Levesque is a shoot name, of course, but Triple H is the man now with creative, and especially at the first half of his reign so far, I think he got a lot of good buzz based off the fact that he wasn't Vince. But
yeah,
in more recent times, it's sort of been like a little bit more shaky from week to week, show to show. And I know
yeah.
you, like I said, you look at things with a critical eye already. So, like, what's your take overall on this beginning of the Triple H reign?
It's, it's
As
watchable, to an extent. But also I think, again, with WWE does I don't want to say a great job, but they've mastered the art of hype and hyping things more than what they really are. And Triple H's first, 3 months, it was like, okay, I seen what he did in NXT, but that's even still like, okay, you had guys when they were hot coming from the indies, had them for 1, 2, 3 years or 2 years, then they'd go up to the main roster. It's like, never really had a wrestler that didn't have anything and you built them from the ground up. So it's like, okay, let's play this out. But in more recent times, a lot of people, and I've noticed this, that he's brought back at least 19 wrestlers that were released.
yeah,
Only one of those wrestlers got a vignette building up their return. So you had these other wrestlers that just come back, and it's like, and you watch the reaction from the crowd, it's like, who? And it's like, most of your audience, the main roster audience, like, didn't watch NXT. So it's like, that's where it's like, okay, this is something that Vince would have never done. You would have brought someone up with a vignette and build it up,
oh yeah,
because that's one characteristics I do got to give Vince McMahon credit. He understood the art of building up a character as far as presentation. Beyond that, then that was just his thing. It's like, all right, whatever, it's hit or miss. But the art of building a vignette where you're like, man, who is this character? Man, okay. Oh man, that's the vignette I saw. But it was just a lot of cold returns, and a lot of the people that he brought back outside of Bray, it's like, they're there, but why should I get invested in them? Like, all right. And it just, I mean, his biggest test coming up is going to be WrestleMania in Los Angeles. Like, that's a big test. And of
Yeah,
course, he lucked into having Roman Reigns be one of the hottest heels in wrestling. And of course, Sami Zayn getting that over. And then it's like, okay, WrestleMania's going to have this 3 month build from January to late March, early April. That's 3 months. What's going to happen for the next, after that, the next 9 months? Like, where are you going to go with the bloodline? Where are you going to go if Roman Reigns drops the title? That's all the questions and everything. It's just like,
yeah. I I find it hard to believe that they thinking that far ahead. Like, I definitely agree about WrestleMania. Like, they're gonna go all in because it's in LA.
yeah,
It's they're gonna try to make it the biggest WrestleMania yet, and they have the potential pieces to make it the biggest one yet because they have stars in The Rock and Stone Cold and Lesnar. They have crossover stars who they could possibly get involved and make this into something that mainstream media really gravitates to, and
yeah,
make matches that are not only appealing to hardcore wrestling fans but to people who just watch wrestling one time a year at WrestleMania. So yeah,
yeah,
that's gonna be like you say, that's gonna be the first real test for Triple H, and it's gonna be the first show that really speaks to his potential legacy as head of creative for WWE. Like,
yeah.
what did
I
what did
mean,
you
that's not easy.
yeah, how did you make this opportunity to make the most of this opportunity?
Yeah,
And
and
did you live up to some of the best shows that Vince has put on in the past?
yeah, because it's like getting back to Triple H. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, of course we've heard this for many years. Like, oh, he's gonna do a great job. He's gonna do a great job. And it's like I always tell people, like, slow your roll on that, because it's one thing to, oh, he's gonna do a great job when Vince is there, because you have that, um, that crutch, if you want to call it. Hey, I'm good
Yeah,
because Vince is there. But now, or canopy of protection. Vince is, look how good I am because, you're judging me off Vince. But now Triple H doesn't have Vince McMahon there, so he's being judged on his own stuff. And and it's fair because, like, hey, Vince McMahon isn't there. Okay, let's see what you can do. And it's like, come on, man, you
and
excuse me.
other people have been in that position before, like Vince Russo. Like, you know, they were brilliant people. What they did was deemed brilliant while they were still with WWE, and they had Vince as their protection. But when they had to step out on their own, it was a lot less. It was diminishing returns.
Yeah. And that's the issue with Triple H's booking, and more recent, it's because it's just like there's no. I used this term on True Heat podcast 2 weeks ago, that there's a lot of vagueness to WWE storylines. Like, it's vague. I wouldn't say it's bad or it's good. It's just, okay, why? Like, why should I be invested? Like, and again, outside of Roman and Bray Wyatt, if you really look at it, and you throw in Seth Rollins, like, it's just vague. Like, why should we invest? Like, granted, it's like, all right. And then, of course, if you watch more so Raw than SmackDown, one of the biggest criticisms has been the crowds. Like, there's been matches for most of the show where the crowd is just sitting there. There's
Yeah,
no little reaction. And I've always used this term that WWE, in the past 20 plus years since they bought WCW, that they've slowly conditioned an audience to witness WWE instead of experience WWE. And by that, you witness WWE, hey, I went to the show and yeah, it looked good. I got some merchandise, blah, blah, blah. But experience is like, yo, man, we were cheering, we were doing this, man, it was great. This guy came out and, man, they start breaking down storylines, and you don't get that a lot from people that go to WWE shows lately. It's very few stories that you hear about that. And it's just like, man, you can bring back all these people, but, like, you need to fix that. And I've always
Yeah.
used this term like, why should I watch a wrestling show where the crowd is like a golf crowd? Like, if I want to watch a crowd not react, I can watch golf. Like, what do I want to watch this for?
Right.
And, that's not only just
Yeah.
wrestling wise, it's sports wise. Who wants to watch a basketball game where the crowd is quiet?
But
You
I think
know,
even more so with wrestling, like the energy of the crowd feeds into the ring and what happens in the ring, and then that comes across on the TV. Like if you at home and that crowd is popping, you're more likely to want to pop yourself.
yeah.
So
And I mean, a perfect
it's
example
very important
is what happened
that
yesterday.
yeah.
With was it at AEW, Chris Jericho and freaking a no-name guy, Action Andretti, and this crowd got behind a freaking, well, they call him a jobber, and it was so
Yeah.
organic. It was like, yo, what is going on here? This is crazy, and that's pro wrestling.
That
It's
was
like,
great. Yeah.
and WWE has the
And what's
potential.
well, go ahead, finish that off.
Yeah, WWE has the potential to do that. They have the tools to do it, but it's like, man, are you making so much money you just don't like feel it's a necessity to do that weekly on Raw, or just it's only a necessity on WrestleMania, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, and whatever overseas show you do, and it's just like you know that works in the now, but as years go on, it kind of gets like it's kind of repetitive. Like
Well,
mix it up.
I think even we talk about how for years WWE was really the only game in town when it comes to big time professional wrestling here in America. AEW has changed that in the last couple of years, and it's the AEW has had its rocky moments, and they've had some if I wonder how many people outside of like the hardcores really care about ratings and stuff like that. But the ratings have been sort of an issue with AEW at times as well. But one thing that really AEW remains and I think this is probably its most valuable aspect as an alternative to WWE is that connection with its audience. And like you said, you mentioned a moment yesterday where this no name guy, a first time wrestler on the show comes on and beats Chris Jericho, who is one of the most important wrestlers of the past 30 years, let alone, how important he is specifically to AEW. He comes on and upsets this guy and this guy Action Andretti, I should say, comes on and upsets Jericho, and he ends up with a contract at the end of the night. He's all elite. Tony Khan announces it online, and it's those type of moments. You get those more from AEW. Now, for good and for bad, you get the unexpected more from AEW. And you mentioned earlier the brawl out, or moment. Essentially, after their all out pay per view here in suburban Chicago, CM Punk regains the AEW title from John Moxley after a whole thing, injury thing. Moxley takes over that summer. He's the interim champion, has a lot of great matches, and really carries the carries the promotion while Punk and MJF are gone. But they make the decision to have Punk beat Moxley at All Out in front of, like I said, Chicago crowd. Essentially, they didn't want to riot, I guess. But after the show, Punk goes off. He has a a memorable scrum with the media, and that causes a interaction, a fight essentially with the three of the vice presidents, the executive vice presidents, who are also talent in AEW by the elite, and that essentially ends, for what we know now, essentially ends CM Punk's run in AEW, and just from that as a starting point. What do you think about the year that AEW has had? Do you think it's been a challenging year? Do you think that it's a year that, do you think they've made any advances as a promotion this year, or do you think that they've just set themselves up for more challenges? They say Maxwell Jacob Freeman is the champion now. He's only 26 years old. He is the future of that company, apparently, but he likes to tease about possibly going to WWE in 2024. So we don't know how much that is him just teasing or what. But like I said, what do you think about the year that AEW has had and how it's set up for 2023?
Man, I've always, we've had this discussion before, and I've always said that AEW, I'm big fan of AEW, but I don't have high expectations, and it's not a bad thing, but I've always said that there's things that they have to learn because it's still a 3-year company. And I think this year was more of that, how do you put it, the learning curve over the hump. Like, whatever profession you go into, you always get to that point where you get that big learning curve where it just takes you to another level where you're like, man, it tests you, man, should I be doing this? And all those things that happen and everything. And I think this year was more of a big test. And the fact that out of all the stuff that happened, they've somehow, since Full Gear, have like turned another switch and have like this renewed enthusiasm going into 2023. After Brawl Out, you had Grand Slam, and you had the debut of Soraya, formerly known as Paige. She came in. Also, I think under the radar in AEW, and this was one of the critiques that they had, when they first started, look at the influx of African American talent being highly profiled on AEW. Nobody's talking about that. Like, that was an issue, and now it's just like,
definitely talk about that.
But you see, it's a 180. It's a 180. Also in the women's division, you got Jade Cargill, Athena, Mercedes Martinez as a Latina, and all the, like, it's just Red Velvet. Like, it's like, man, like, there's like deep representation, and it ain't just representation.
They're finally starting to get on the male side some new guys that they're starting to push up towards the top of the card. Ricky Starks fights yesterday for the title. Of course, he didn't. As expected, he didn't win, but he looked respectable. And Brian, Daniel Bryan, who comes out and gives him a little bit of a rub at the end. So it looks like going into the new year, Daniel Bryan is really going to be the one to challenge MJF. But you still have Starks, who is available, who looks respectable as a challenger as well. And I hope, like I said, I hope that other guys get similar pushes, maybe a Powerhouse Hobbs or someone like that, or maybe Swerve or Keith Lee coming out of what they look like they're about to do. They coming out of that, one of them got to get a nice push as well, I think. But it's working well. It's working well.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think, like we said, you look at all the stuff that AEW went through this year, and you look at where they are now, and you look at the amount of talent that got momentum in AEW. Ricky Starks, Swerve, Darby, you got Wiri Yuta, you got Wardlow, you got Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Jade Cargill, Red Velvet. Then you got wrestlers that are going to be returning next year, and Chris Statlander. You still got Adam Cole that's, recuperating. Then you add on this huge tease that's, for the January 11th Dynamite at the Forum, Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter versus Soraya and the Mystery Partner. And of course, everybody's like, what the hell did Tony Khan announce a tag team match a month in advance at the Forum? Like, who the hell is their partner? Now it's huge speculation that it could be Sasha Banks, which there's a strong possibility. And this isn't just, I think like a lot of stuff that reports that are coming out, it's like, yeah, that's a strong possibility. Like, this got CM Punk, John Moxley type vibes, like her popping up. So, I mean, if that does happen, mind you, the week before that show is Wrestle Kingdom, where Kenny Omega's wrestling Will Ospreay, and FTR's on the card. And of course, you got Carl Anderson from WWE on there. So it's just a lot of momentum going into
Yeah,
2023.
like I said, we gonna end with some predictions and possibilities for 2023, right? And I know you have a list that you put out too. We gonna mention that, but right quick before we do that, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the ROH situation with AEW, and ROH just put on a pretty good show, its final battle show, and that was highlighted mostly by the dog collar match with FTR and the Briscoes, a brilliant match of the year. A lot of people are saying at this point, but what did you first of all? What did you think about that trilogy? All those matches did occur this year. That's another story. We talk about big stories from this year. Those three matches, and what do you think overall about the ROH situation within AEW? Like they don't have a TV deal as of now, but they are apparently going to be bringing back the weekly ROH shows with, but it's going to be just available on the Watch ROH app and all that. So, do you think that that's being handled the way that it needs to be, and do you think that there's room for ROH to grow with, they got their titles on some big names right now, Willie Yuta, Claudio Castagnoli, Samoa Joe, got their titles and everything, and of course the Briscoes just took back the tag team title. But what do you think about that ROH situation going into 2023?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people have said that Tony Khan, it's a L, you couldn't get a TV deal. And I've always told people this. I'm like, you need to look at the bigger picture. You need to look at what the hell is happening in Warner Brothers Discovery, like the
Mm-hmm.
restructuring and all that stuff. And I believe the person that was over the department that AEW is under, like they've changed that position 3 times within 2 years or something like that. And I look at it this way. If I'm Tony Khan and I have this brand, I have this business, and the people that I talk to as far as pitching, hey, I have this other wrestling project, and they keep changing, and Warner Brothers is restructuring, and look at what they're doing with DC, the whole, that whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. Why am I going
Yeah.
to wait for them to restructure? As a business owner, I'm not going to wait for them to restructure. That's going to hurt my business. You know what? When I bought Ring of Honor, I had ROH, the Honor Club already there. Why am I going to wait? I'm just going to hurt my business. You know what? Put it on there, and then when they get done restructuring, which I believe the CEO of Warner Media or Warner Bros. Discovery said the restructuring should end in 2024. We'll see. I don't see no problem with them putting it on Honor Club because of that. If
Yeah.
you're in a situation where there's constant change and restructuring, you got to help your business first. Like you can't depend on another business, to, I'll wait and blah, blah, blah. And I remember my buddy back in the day used this quote. He's like, I'd rather have a quick no than a slow yes. Like,
Mm.
I'm not going to sit here and wait for people to, twiddle their thumbs like, you're going to destroy your business that way. So for me, I see why he did it that way. I would have liked them to have a TV deal, but considering what's happening in Warner Media, man, go
That's
go go take care of your business first because they don't.
yeah.
It looks like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a good point you made because you don't want to put all your eggs in that Warner Brothers basket, especially given all the upheaval and things that are going on with that company right now, and they're merging and things that are going on. As it is right now with ROH, you still have flexibility, and you still could take and you can give or take offers from other companies and other platforms as you like, to put out that programming. But one interesting thing, though, still with Warner Brothers, but it could be another option that I've been hearing about actually just today, is that Warner Brothers is interested in going more. They're still having a app that's a free streaming app as well, like
Mm.
Pluto, yeah, like Pluto and those type of apps. So that's why with some of the HBO Max shows, though they've recently reported like Westworld and stuff coming off of HBO Max. They're looking to put those shows on a free streaming platform of slash app, and
Yeah,
have just have it available to people for free, but there'll be ads around it. So I think actually Ring of Honor, that could be a good spot for Ring of Honor, in the
yeah,
future as well, as where you can have that ROH stream go, 24-hour stream channel, show classic ROH as well as your new shows. That's really somewhere where like a Impact has thrived in recent years on free streaming, and has kept well, you say you kind of argue
I,
that a little
I,
bit.
no, I'm not arguing, but it was just reported on Wrestling Inc. that Wild Women of Wrestling is outdrawing Impact Wrestling.
Oh wow. Well, that
Yeah.
helps because it's on CW. So
Oh
I
man, and
mean,
and it's a good product.
yeah,
That's the thing. It's a fun product, man. It's a really fun show.
yeah. I peeped it a little bit too, and I guess before we get to the final, the final predictions or whatever for 2023, yeah, let's talk a little bit about some of these other promotions and these smaller promotions and programs. Like, WoW really got going again this year. That's another story from this past year. And being, like I say, being able to get on a network like CW, they're not in an ideal spot as far as their airings, but they're still getting some viewers. They're getting some traction, and they're getting out to a good start. But as whatever you want to mention, that or any other promotions that sort of stuck out, any storylines from elsewhere in the wrestling world that have stuck
Yeah.
out to you.
I know it's funny because I've actually gotten a lot of retweets. And one in particular, Jeannie Buss retweeted my uh one tweet
Yeah, yeah,
about Wild Women Wrestling. I was like, holy crap. And that's one thing I'm grateful for, that I'm seeing a lot of these high profile wrestlers and people in the industry like either like, share, view, or retweet my stuff. I'm like, oh man, thank you. Finally, I'm turning the page. But no, getting
definitely,
back to that,
definitely.
man. While Women Are Wrestling, I love the lighting. I love the tempo, the pacing of the show. It's only 1 hour, so it's easy to digest. I've mentioned this numerous times, and other people have said it. While Women Are Wrestling has one of the best vignettes. Like, they shoot some of the best vignettes for their wrestlers. That is just like the content within and the depth is like, damn, this is deep. Like, I want to see more of this character. Like, man, can you like do a Total Divas or something? Like, that would be ideal for a brand like Wild Women of Wrestling to do a Total Divas type show.
Mhm.
I'm surprised they haven't tapped into that.
Yeah,
But outside of that, I mean, Impact Wrestling, it's, at the beginning of the year, like, man, they were rocking. And then as the year went on, once we got to like, I want to say May, June, it just like they plateaued. It was just like, all right, you haven't like, you should be going to that next level, and it's just like
yeah.
they're stuck, and it's just like, eh.
And
MLW.
it's weird
Mhm.
because just right quick, because I like Josh Alexander and I think he's a good champion, but it seemed like you say, the storytelling overall around that belt and at the top of that show is not what it was at the beginning of the year, and
Yeah,
they they're not like they've gotten they're trying to rely on old. They bring back guys like a Bully Ray, and they're trying to rely on people like that again. It's interesting too because you seeing him there and in NWA, and both of those places are sort of having similar problems right now. So
man.
I don't know if you could put it all on Bully Ray. There's definitely one guy in NWA who I put a lot of issues on, but I
Oh man,
but
that
the
don't.
guy
That's a
who,
whole nother fandom
yeah,
about that.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah, the guy
god.
who's holding their title, they really could do
Yeah,
away with
and you know
that.
what?
But
It's funny you mentioned that because I noticed this last year when I was watching both companies, and I was like, man, I thought I was the only one, but other people said it that Impact Wrestling and NWA, their strongest division is their women's division.
Oh
Yet
yeah.
they push more of the women or the men, and it's like, bro, you got strong women's division. That should be the forefront of your show instead of the men. And it's just like, well,
And
maybe it's just,
apparently, Billy Corgan don't really have respect for the women. Apparently, according to what Nick Aldis
man,
and
I
is
don't care if that was character or real life. That was the most stupidest thing to say. And it's like all these independent wrestlers, mind you, I went to the Women's Wrestling Army show, um, man, a few months ago at the Logan Square Auditorium.
mm,
Most of those women they're not signed to a company. I'm like, yo, that's like 20 women right there that are talented and deep. They've been on AEW Dark. Like, yo, they were on the show last year. Like, what are you talking about? And it's just like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know how long he's gonna be in the industry. But outside of that, the one bright spot I do like is MLW and what they're
yeah,
doing.
yeah.
That's
I
always a
like
fun man. That
MLW
is a
too. Yeah.
fun show. That's a fun show to just watch and just digest and everything. Trying to think of another
I wish
promotion.
MLW had a bigger platform, but it's funny because they got this lawsuit going on now with the WWE, and
Yeah,
apparently WWE might have been hating on them and got in the way of them getting on Tubi or something like that.
yeah,
So
and
you
that's
know,
like, So I mean, it's gonna be an interesting pro wrestling world going into 2023.
yeah.
You know,
Do you think that 2023 could be even wilder than 2022?
yeah, like that, yeah. I'm not even gonna. Oh, maybe. No, there's no thinking about it. It's the fact that the second week of January, there's a possibility of Sasha Banks debuting in AEW. The second
And
week of
already she's gonna be in Tokyo, so we already know she's gonna be at the Tokyo Dome.
exactly in the first 2 weeks. That's the
Yeah.
first 2 weeks. And to think that, of course, people are like, "Oh, Sasha Banks ain't going; she's not there." And it was already reported that she had a release. Came out today that she had her release back in June, and there was reports that WrestleCade wanted to contact her, like, "Hey, any bookings?" And this is the first time where it's like, yeah, she might be doing stuff outside of WWE. And it was reported that her people told them like she's not taking any wrestling bookings. Keyword, wrestling bookings till
Hmm.
January 2023. And it's like, hmm? And then of course in the last few weeks, we've seen her trademark names for businesses, art, music, wrestling purposes. And it's like, all right, you got all these trademarks. You ain't taking bookings till January 2023. And it's like, all right, you weren't at Survivor Series, but then a couple of days later, you were at the Celtics game. It's like your girl's taking pictures with Jade Cargill.
And see,
It's like,
I know people might be more disappointed if if it works out this way, but I don't think you should sleep on Trinity. Possibly making that leap either to AEW.
exactly.
Maybe she might be the secret partner as well. I don't know, but
And, what mind you, and you know how I review my shows. I'm very objective. It's like, okay, I'll see the good in the show and the bad in the show no matter what. And WWE, outside of Bianca Belair and, damn, like their women's division has regressed under Triple H's booking, which is crazy because he was the part of the women's
they
revolution.
have dealt with some injuries and stuff though.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
it
just
hasn't.
very vague.
Yeah.
The whole thing with Ronda Rousey, and it's like, okay, they need a mouthpiece. Why don't you put Sonya Deville with them and everything? And I mentioned this to my buddy. He's like, no, Sasha Banks gonna come back. I'm like, dude, what else is there for her to do in WWE? Like literally, besides make money, what else is there for her to do? Like
Yeah.
if you're a person that's challenging, if you're a person that, man, I like a challenge, she's faced everybody. And, of course, one person like, oh, well, you know, they brought Cody Rhodes and face Seth Rollins. I'm like, who in the women's division is being booked to the level that Seth Rollins was when Cody Rhodes returned? There's no one. So it's like, when you look at the optics, it's like, yo, her going to AEW and wrestling a couple dates in Japan, which, if you go back to the Stone Cold podcast, she's like, I was ready to go to Japan before WWE contacted me. So it's like, all right, I'm starting to see these. Let me put this puzzle together and see where this is going.
It definitely seems like she's been intent to do some work in Japan.
Yeah.
And maybe it's best this way. I think.
Yeah.
Like with at this point, with Triple H, they're letting people have little bit of freedom, definitely more than what Vince would do. Like when you look at Carl Anderson being able to defend the never open weight title, that's something that Vince would never have let him do. But he
would have dropped the title. Yeah. Was it yesterday? He would have dropped the title, which a lot of people think that's a doorway for WWE. Like, oh, they have an agreement. What happened was, before Gallows and Anderson returned to WWE, they already agreed to work the Wrestle Kingdom. So it's more WWE letting them honor their word with Japan, like, hey, just finish that up and everything, which I don't have no problem with that. It's like, I benefit as a wrestling fan covering it. It's like, you're going to have WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling. Screw it. All right, let's have fun. Even though I'm going to be up at 2 a.m. watching it. All right, I'll have fun.
You've done it before. Yeah. But
man, I dread it.
But we right quick though, we talk about like restriction, like stuff being more open for the wrestlers. Like, of course, you get one more wild story to pop out this year at the end of the year with Mandy Rose, and that might be, I don't know exactly how much she was showing on her little page, but
birthday suit.
She was going she's showing everything.
Birthday suit.
Wow. I saw a couple of like pool things, but she really. I might have to search a little bit, but
birthday suit with somebody else's birthday suit.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
look, it wasn't. I'll put it like this: it wasn't. It wasn't. What's the term? Like, it wasn't racy content. It was explicit. Okay. There's a difference. There's a difference. I'll just leave it at that.
Do you think like first off, that I think the match that she wound up having with Roxanne was good, and I like that Roxanne got the title. Apparently that was the plan anyway, but they were going to do it at the show on January 10th, actually my birthday. but Roxanne, they pushed it up, I guess because of this issue. But do you think they handled it the right way?
Yeah, man, you know what? I've seen people on TikTok create videos about it. They're wrong. And it came out today that WWE knew of the explicit content that she was doing. They had received word from Mattel like, hey, we got a business, that doesn't fit in our parameters. It came out also that Mandy Rose was making more money doing that content than in the WWE. Yeah, so it's kind of like, WWE had their stance, she had her stance, and it wasn't, I don't think it was ugly or anything. It was just more like, hey, you keep doing this, she probably told, I'm making more money here. It's like, hey, you know what? We got to release you because of the, the business partners that we have and stuff like that, and the image and stuff like that. And of course, it goes against what the agreement within their contract as far as third party that way. So I mean, I don't have no issue with it. I see WWE's side to it. I see her side sticking to it. Like, hey, I'm making more money.
It seemed that like what's a girl who went away before? Who's with Legado de Fantasma now?
Selena,
yeah. Like that was essentially the issue with her a year ago or so, right? Like she didn't want to lose her third party, earnings, and they let her go. But eventually, she came back. So I think
Yeah.
with Mandy,
Yeah.
there's the possibility of her coming back. If she eases up on that other stuff.
Yeah. And that was the thing. Like a lot of people making comparisons. Oh, this person had third party. And it's like, no, here's the difference. Like she was on, was it Free Time or whatever that platform is, which was like a lower tier OnlyFans. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
no, they were on Twitch. Like
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
talking
Definitely.
video
Yeah.
games.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Slim
Selena
wasn't
had an OnlyFans, but
doing
like
anything.
most of them
Yeah.
weren't showing explicit images. Like
Her stuff was more
there's an
like
image.
gaming stuff, right?
Yeah.
On
And
Twitch.
like what
Right.
Mandy Rose was posting, it's like, yo, like, hey, if you making money, hey, I ain't
Yeah.
knocking nobody's hustle. So that's
Exactly.
like for me, I'm like, I see both sides. Like, what is there this, oh, why did they fire, why did they release her? She can afford to get released. They can afford to release her.
Yeah.
What it's business. Like, all
And
right.
and again, bringing it back to the ring, I think it was about time that she, whether they let her go or not,
Yeah,
it was about time that she came up off that NXT title and that they got
exactly.
somebody else over in that division.
And what people miss is that she did business the right way. She
She
put
did. She
Roxanne
did.
over. She did it. It wasn't no scene or anything like that. She did it
Right.
the right way. And it's like, she did business the right way. You know, they released her. I believe she made a statement. I haven't read anything. From what I've seen, it wasn't anything like, oh, I hate, it wasn't anything like that. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's business. Like, and I think that's something, man, that's one thing that irks me about some wrestling fans. Is like, there's more to wrestling than wrestling. There's the business aspect. Like, it's a business. That's what it is. Like, you're
Yeah.
gonna get stuff like this, and more than likely, she'll probably come back as like stack up
Exactly.
money, and it's like, you know what? I'll come back for a WrestleMania run or an appearance.
Exactly.
Look,
Yeah.
that's how you leverage your character and your power. That's what people are doing.
Yeah. And
You know,
I'm all for the talent having as much leverage and power as they can have because
yeah,
it's not an easy business and they don't have a lot of rights, especially when you compare it to like the other to sports where you have collectively bargain agreements and stuff like that, and you
yeah,
have essential standards for money and everything like that, for money shares and everything like that. They don't have that stuff in wrestling. So when it comes down to like each individual, they got to get it how they live, and they got to get it. They got to look out for themselves when it comes to the bargaining table. So do what you got to
it's
do.
like, hey, just I'm all for it, man.
Right, right. And when you look like Mandy Rose, I don't show. I'm all for showing what you got.
Whew,
But
whew, Lord
anyway,
have
man,
mercy.
let's wrap up up this session, man, with like say you have your predictions for 2023. Again, look at all this
Yeah,
content.
I got to release it. Now,
Yeah,
thank you for reminding me. I have to release that. I'm almost done with the top 200. Like last year, I didn't do the predictions because it was just crazy going into 2022. But 2023, I got some predictions.
yeah. Look out for all of Dedrian's content on House of Wrestling. His top 200 wrestlers list, right?
Yeah, it grew from the first list that I did that you looked at was the top 50. So in in 3 years, it's gone from 50 to 200. But that shows you just how deep the wrestling pool is. And there's another 500 to 1,000 people that I left off.
Yeah.
It's just that deep.
That you serious about it, man? I couldn't imagine like I watch a lot of wrestling, man, but I couldn't imagine watching as much as I do and doing the meticulous work that you do alongside it to put out the content that you do, man. I definitely give you your props for that, man. But like I say, you do that for because you love it and you're getting the responses that you get online. Well, the interactions that you get with the like say people like Jeannie Buss and workers and everything, people in the wrestlers themselves and stuff. So as you continue on into this coming year, 2023, what are some of the things that you're willing to stand out on a limb and say, I think this is going to happen or that's going to happen, or look out for this or that, that you want people to,
Um, the big one, I am pretty sure that we're going to see CM Punk back in AEW
back in AEW.
with
Okay.
with FTR. And the reason why I say that, and I mentioned this was the last Thursday, I went live with one of my buddies on TikTok, and I mentioned this. I'm like, historically, when wrestlers troll other wrestlers, it's eventually their way of teasing, like, hey, come back, You get what I'm saying? Like, it's usually that,
So what
like,
the Elite did essentially here in
yeah.
Chicago a couple weeks
And
ago.
the way they did it, it's like, if you know their history, like, no, time heals all wounds, and especially you give enough time, it's like, man, you know what? Let's just look. We got money. Like, we got money on the table. Like,
Yeah,
there's money in a Kenny Omega CM Punk feud with that history.
it'd be
Then
a
you add
shame
on,
if they let that never happen
yeah.
because of pettiness.
But then you also look at FTR. They still want to challenge the Young Bucks, and it's like, okay, FTR was teaming with CM Punk. They had plans of them being a trio champion. It's like, all right, CM Punk, he's going to be out till, was it May, June?
Hmm.
So beginning of next summer, you bring CM Punk on your TV, and then it's like, okay, are we going to do a double switch with MJF and CM Punk, where MJF is the face and CM Punk is the top heel? It's like, I see that happening. I really do see that happening. That's my biggest prediction.
But
I see it.
let's go back to another one right quick that we already talked about. Does Sasha go full time with either AEW or WWE by the end of the year?
2023, I think she's more
But
than
yeah,
likely
by
going
the
to
end
have
of
a multi.
2023, not the end of 2022.
Yeah. I believe she's going to have a multi-year contract, and of course, in AEW and how AEW structures their contract, I believe it's probably going to be similar to what John Moxley had when he first went in, where he was able to do the Japan dates and everything. And looking at Tony Khan's history with wrestlers that want to wrestle in Japan, he gives them the flexibility to do it.
So
So
you said she has a deal with AEW that allows her to work
yeah,
in Japan as well as America.
yeah, I see that happening. And with Tony Khan teasing New Japan, AAA, DDT Wrestling at the media scrum for ROH, it's like, dude, he's bringing everybody in. It's like, nah, she's going over there. And I mean, getting back to WWE, it's like WWE's gonna have that great. They're gonna have a big build for WrestleMania. I mean, it's. I'm not gonna take that away from, 'em, but then it's like after WrestleMania, that's when you need to deliver. Like, people already been talking about this WrestleMania for 2 years. It's like, now you
Well,
got to deliver after WrestleMania.
that being said, looking forward, do you think that MJF will be in play for WWE towards the end of the year, or will he be wrapped up? Will he be locked down with AEW?
So his contract does end, I believe it was reported January 2024.
Yeah.
Um, Me personally, I think he's staying in AEW for the simple fact that you're starting to see, like going back to their WWE storytelling, it's very vague, and they're relying heavily on veteran talent, and you don't see a lot of young talent getting that rub. Like, you don't see a lot of them, like, just like, man, I want to invest in them. Like, you don't see a lot of that.
Mm.
Um, I do think he stays in AEW, and I don't know, 2024, 2025, we might have MJF Cody for the AEW championship. Just saying. That's reckless
Well,
speculation.
I would like to agree with you. I think in two out of those three cases, I could see those wrestlers being in AEW, but I think at least one of them will be in WWE, and I would say it may be more likely that Cody A MJF happens in WWE. I don't know.
Yeah, the other thing to think about is this whole Vince McMahon trying to come back. Like right now, it's there's nothing. But man, if he tries to come back, the the legal battle
Yeah,
that's going to take
it's gonna
place,
be
like I
messy,
think that's
man.
something
It's
that
gonna be
if it
messy.
happens in 2023, man, that's gonna be crazy for WWE.
Yeah, that'll be messy, and that's why I think they gotta either nip that in the bud right away,
Yeah,
or they could, like I say, that if that happens, that could mess up a lot of stuff business wise for WWE, because just that report the other day, stock prices came down. Like the
exactly.
perception of Vince getting back into power for real, like people do not want that really, and so that I'll give you that. Like if Vince like tries to make a mess of things next year, that could affect WWE on TV in every way possible, and
Yeah,
that could come down to
morale.
what talent wants to be on what side and all that. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of what like I was kind of, when I gave you that question, I was sort of like, man, I don't know how 23 could be more wild than 22, but now I'm starting to think like it could be, man. So
like like what the hell? We're not even like you think this year. Like it started with Tony Khan's tweet about Big Swole,
yeah,
and that was the big thing. And now
yeah,
you look back, nobody even talks about that anymore. Like they'll bring it
right.
up, but it's everything's about Vince, and it's like how much stuff happened. It's like man, but yeah, that Vince McMahon, if he tries to, like most wrestling fans, like oh that's nothing, but like if you know the business world, and when people try to come back in power and the legal
Mm-hmm.
battles and the stuff they try to maneuver, like that could get ugly for WWE,
Yeah,
and it's like, man, I don't think you guys underestimate, like, if he's that serious like that, he's going to try to, like, come back. And it's like, that could be really messy. And, I don't know, man. We'll see what 2023 has. But on the wrestling side, I'm looking forward to it. Outside of WWE,
oh
I'm looking
yeah.
forward to it. Within WWE, I'm just like, you're
There's
going to
no
get probably The Rock, Cena, Bad Bunny, Lesnar at WrestleMania. It's like, all right.
you expect the Rock at WrestleMania, yeah?
I mean, if they don't have The Rock at WrestleMania, like, and I believe right now they one match that they have penciled in, which I'm all for that match, which is Gunther and Brock Lesnar. Like,
Yeah,
I'll watch that match 7 times. Like, give me that match. I love that match. But outside of that, it's like, man, we're probably gonna get Bianca and Charlotte Flair. We're probably gonna get Becky and Ronda Rousey. We're probably gonna get Cena and Logan Paul. Trying to think of anything else because with
do you
Roman
think
Reigns, it's like,
Austin comes back again?
yeah, he's actually that's the thing. If we get Rock and Roman, we're probably getting Austin and Cody or Austin and I don't know how that's gonna work out, but I mean WrestleMania is gonna be dope for nostalgic purposes, but like as far as progressing any current storylines, it's like whatever. They're not paying me. It's like whatever. It's like they're not paying me. It's like whatever.
Well, we definitely gonna check back with you probably around that time, and maybe we'll preview Mania and all that. But man, and in the meantime, man, let people know where to follow you and keep up with your work, because as as we spent the last hour telling you, man, there's gonna be no lack of great stuff to follow both in and out of the ring when it comes to professional wrestling coming up. So let people know how they
Man,
can keep up with you.
I am dreading that first week of January. I'm like, man, that's a
Right off the
lot of work.
bat,
But I'm like,
man.
all right, whatever. No, you can follow me. You can follow House of Wrestling. That's House of Rasslin. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You can follow me on TikTok, which I post most of my wrestling content. You can follow me at Dedrian180 underscore, I believe. That's what my handle is because I've had to tweak it a little bit. You can follow me on Twitter at Dedrian180 and Instagram at Dedrian180. And man, all the content on House of Wrestling, if you go through the IG story, is nostalgia and just what we love about professional wrestling and stuff like that. I rarely do videos on all the drama in wrestling, which is crazy. I just review. I'm like, I ain't got time for that damn
Review
drama.
shows,
It's
yeah,
like,
but it's
no, the reason
yeah,
why I don't do it, man. One of the reasons why I don't do it is because I know the wrestling news cycle is quicker and it changes more than the sports news cycle. I'm like,
yeah.
in 6 hours, this story gonna be old. Like, nah, I ain't doing it.
I feel you. I feel you. But definitely, Dedrian's platform is for real lovers of wrestling. So it ain't necessarily just for people who want to gossip and get caught up in scandal. But there, like I said, there is a lot of that to be had in wrestling if you want that. So,
Man,
it's
it's wild,
it
man.
gives you it. But people still like to try to clown grown people who in the wrestling stuff. I'm like, man, wrestling touches on everything that makes America great and everything that makes America insane. So I'm always
Hey,
gonna be in the wrestling.
look at this. In the past 3 days, we got stories about Vince coming back, Mandy Rose being released, um, Sasha Banks being interviewed by Bailey on IG Live, and then more information about Sasha Banks' release. That was just in the past 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
3 days. 3 days. That's content for a month in 3 days. And I'm like, and somebody's like, "Oh, the year's gonna be great." I was like, "Yeah, there's still more days. There's gonna be more stories coming out." Pro wrestling never sleeps.
There you go. That's the phrase right there. Pro wrestling never sleep. Probably you put that on a T-shirt. Really, man. Pro wrestling never sleep. But that's what we gonna leave it at that though, because pro wrestling never sleeps. But we always gonna keep an eye on it here, as definitely Dedrian is. So that's it for now. Fandemonium, War Media. Keep up with us online everywhere at War Media. That's how we get down. And yeah, our man Dedrian always on the case when it comes to the square circle. So we appreciate you, bro. And yeah, have a good 2023. And hopefully, like I say, hopefully those early mornings covering Japan or whatever it don't get to you too much.
Oh man, I'm covering Japan that morning and then Dynamite later that night.
Yeah. Make sure you take care of yourself, man. Get to rest whenever you can, man.
Oh, I will. I will, man. I have no choice.
All right. I'm definitely gonna get mine as well. So like I said, we'll holler at y'all later. And that's it. We out.